What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Daily Energy News Beat Stand-Up here on this gorgeous Thursday, March 30th, 2023. As always, I'm your humble correspondent, Michael Tanner, coming to you from an undisclosed location here in Dallas, Texas, joined by the executive producer of the show, the purveyor of the show, and the director and publisher of the world's greatest website, EnergyNewsBeat.com, Stuart Turley. My man, how we doing today?
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. I'm already ready for the weekend.
It is. I mean, it's only a 3-day week for us, Stu. We had a show. We took yesterday off because we just had a lot of things going on and couldn't consolidate. Tomorrow will be our weekly recap, so make sure to check that show out on Friday. But this is technically Friday for us, Stu, so we will make sure to send you guys out with a bang. And speaking of that, Stu, you have some absolutely banger articles lined up for us and a real interesting mix. First off, we've got U.S. rakes in $263 million from Gulf of Mexico drilling rights auction. Cha-ching, cha-ching, and they said oil and gas was dead. Stu will cover all what happened in this latest offshore oil and gas auction by the United States government. So it'll be interesting to see what all that means. Next up, we have OPEC shows no signs of changing output at meeting next week. It's going to be a very interesting meeting to see what conclusions they come to. Oil currently trading at $72. It's going to be really interesting to see if they want to keep it there. So Stu will dive into all of the predictions for next week's OPEC meeting. Next on the menu, we have the new candidate countries for BRICS expansion. Done, done, done. As always, Stu will weave this in to energy, but it's kind of scary what's going on the international stage right now. So Stu will dive into all that. Next, we have the countries bailed out by China. Talk about another spooky story. So China coming to the aid of a lot of different people. Stu will dive into that story. Next up, we have reuse of coal plants can cut small modular reactor development costs by 35%, according to a new report. This is awesome. Stu will do a deep dive into specifically what this means. If you've all listened to the show, you know that Stu is a huge fan of that modular nuclear reactor technology, so he will dive into all of that. He'll kick it over to me, and we'll quickly cover some finance related issues in the oil and gas market, specifically where prices are headed both on the oil side and the gas side. EIA dropped an unexpected draw from their crude oil reserves yesterday. As you guys are listening to this today, as we're recording this, EIA expects the drop on the natural gas side of about a 50 BCF draw, so I'll cover that. We had a little Canada merger and acquisition between Crescent Point and Spartan. I was a Spartan Delton Corporation, $1.7 billion up there in the Albertan. The Montney, which is considered their Wolf Camp A / Sprayberry. If you had to peg that, everyone loves the Montney's huge up there. So good pickup for Crescent Point. We'll cover slightly what that deal terms look like, and maybe opine if we like it, if we have time. And then we'll let you guys get out of here, get on your way, and start your Thursday. But before I kick it over to Stu for the first article, again, guys, check us out. World's greatest website, www.energynewsbeat.com. Hit the description below. All of the articles we're about to cover are courtesy of that website. Stu does a great job of keeping that updated. We have a great team behind that, making sure all of the stories are available. The moment they crack, you will always have access to the latest shows. Dashboard.energynewsbeat.com. It's our data news combo. Get it while you still can. I'm out of breath, though, Stu. Where do you want to begin?
Before we get started, do you know what Canada and Oklahoma State, OSU, have in common?
There's a lot I could say, but I won't.
Okay. When you're at a Canadian hockey match and all you hear is blah, 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 oh, Canada, that's it. And then it goes blah, blah, blah. When you go to an Oklahoma State football game, it's blah, 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 OSU. Both of them, nobody knows the song, and they say OSU or Canada. Okay, let's get on to this thing here real first. First one coming around the corner. U.S. rakes in $263.8 million from Gulf of Mexico drilling rights. The Bureau of Ocean Management, OBEM, offered 73 million acres in U.S. outer continental shelf. The auction was the first in the oil-rich area since 2021. Exxon snapped up more than 60 shallow water blocks. Good for them. Wait a minute. Hang on. I'm getting a phone call. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. On the phone, that was President Biden. He was
Okay.
grateful for the political donations. He had, yes. He was so happy that he got $263.8 million in his political funds. Nice. All right. Coming around the corner.
Well, I think
Go-
it's interesting. I think it's first to say, I think there's something that was noted in this article. You said that Exxon snapped up more than 60 shallow water blocks.
Right.
What analysts are saying is that they could be preparing for a carbon capture storage project. That's what those locations could be. The company only came out though yesterday or today and said, quote, "We are only evaluating the seismic and subsurface geology for future commercial potential." How nice would that be? Pay $15 million or whatever they paid,
Right.
let's say $10 million for whatever those 60 locations were, $20 million. And if that's solely only for science, man, that's some expensive science. I wish I had that type of scientific budget.
But if it's for CCUS or or
It's
storage,
genius. It's genius.
it is genius, because then you're going to be able to sell those as carbon credits, and then that's going to pay for itself. It's genius.
Yep.
Absolutely.
They're 5 to 10 year leases. You're talking about royalty rates of 18.75%. Those shallow the shallow water leases are 12.5 percentage points. The interesting part is, Stu, is that Chevron, while Exxon's snapping up all the shallow water blocks, Chevron is bidding on deep water tracks.
Right.
15.9 million on one deep water track. It's going to be an expensive well. I'd love to see the AFE on that bad boy.
Oh, no kidding.
200 million.
That would be huge. And the Gulf accounts for 15% of oil production and 1% of natural gas production. Wow, I thought it was a lot more than that on nat gas.
Yeah, I mean it's oil out there, baby. There ain't much gas. You don't want gas out there. You're spending $250 million on a well, Stu. You don't want gas.
No, you want them.
Give me that crude, baby. Give me that thick crude.
You bet. All right.
What's next?
OPEC Plus shows no signs of changing oil output at meeting next week. This one I heard Novacek, who is the energy minister for Russia, go, "Hey, why do I need to do anything?" He called up and said, "Hey, I don't need to do anything." That was a translation of what he said. There's absolutely no reason for them to worry about it at this point. I think that they're going to sit back and make some decisions. They're a lot smarter than the Fed. Fed has no clue how to curb inflation, but they got a good idea on pricing and figuring it out.
Well, I think to add some color to that, in 14 traders and analysts polled by Bloomberg voted unanimously that there's going to be no change from that OPEC plus joint ministerial monitoring committee. Good quote from the president of Raytheon Energy Group. Love those guys. They hire a lot of minds, econ guys. Love them. Bob McNally. Right. I suspect they'll be keeping their heads down and eyes open, quote unquote. It's too soon for any firm conclusions that would trigger a recommendation to call a ministerial meeting before June 4th, much less adjust the quota, even in the face of these slumping crude prices. So I'm sort of with, if I was not included in the Bloomberg poll, they didn't bother to call me, but if they did, I'd have been on nothing's going to happen. I'm with them.
Oh, I
we
agree.
need to lobby, Stu. We need to be on that committee. We need to be one of those analysts they're calling.
Oh, absolutely. They can't afford us. But when you sit back and you sit back and take a look, the Saudi minister, Prince bin Salman, particularly clear. He says, quote, the quota limits amounted to 2 million barrels a day cut in production when they were agreed to in October. They're here to stay for the rest of the year. It was just put out, I believe, in an article yesterday that Russia has completely regained all oil sales outside of sanctions. They have 100% fixed the sanctions and the issues.
Interesting. So the article that we're about to cover in my segment that says they're down 300,000 barrels a day is a scam.
The dark fleet.
Ooh, let's find out. I do think it'd be remiss if we didn't point out in this at the end of it. I gotta love this. They go, expectations for the return of $100 a barrel crude, which were widespread across the industry at the start of the year, have cooled in recent weeks. This is my favorite part. Yet major traders, including Trafigura Group and Gunville Energy, are still predicting a rally for the second half of 2023. No kidding. The world's largest energy traders are hoping and thinking oil's going to be higher. What the? Duh. There's a more colorful term we'd say if there weren't kids listening.
No, the only thing I've gotten right lately is that I said we have no idea what.
These are the same guys that had nickel in or that we covered a couple weeks ago that had nickel in a warehouse that was just bags of empty stuff. So, I mean, the due diligence going over on a Trafigura is just top notch.
Yeah. The only thing I had that was intelligent lately was the fact that I said we have no idea of the impact of oil demand coming back in China. I said it may be ho-hum. Who knows how it's going to do? I'm not going to put a number on it. So,
boo China. What's next?
What's next? China. New candidate for countries for BRICS expansion. We're on a China roll here now that we go through it. The Russian foreign minister, Lavrov, boy, I butchered that name up nice, has stated that over a dozen countries have formally applied to join BRICS group following the group's decision to allow new members this year. The BRICS currently includes Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. There's about 6 different articles that happened in the last 2 days, Michael, about China negotiating with Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and they are all wanting in BRICS and BRICS Plus. And this is huge because they're going to go around SWIFT, which is the international monetary system. They're going to create all of the different purchasing mechanisms. And again, as we've talked at for several times, is move the petrodollar away. Concerning a BRICS expansion, Lavrov says that Algeria, Argentina, and Iran have all already applied. While as known, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Egypt, and Afghanistan are interested, along with Indonesia. Indonesia is expected to make the formal application in the G20 summit in Bali. Very interesting and telling article coming around the corner, Michael. This is a huge deal.
I think the scariest is getting Saudi Arabia in there, because then all of a sudden you have almost even with Russia in there, you do, but you almost have you really have a self-sustaining entity if you can really then lock up basically what they say in this article, there's 70% of the world's proven oil reserves. Being able to lock that up in BRICS. Woo.
Here's my thing, and that is the US becomes totally insignificant. The second thing is OPEC and OPEC Plus are they're going to be figureheads. They're going to meet just for the party. There's not going to be anything that they really can do. OPEC and OPEC Plus just become figureheads. So there's going to be no reason for them to even be in existence.
So question for you. Why doesn't the United States join BRICS? Ooh.
Because they hate us.
Would they ever let us?
No. The treaty that the Biden administration is working out with the WHO right now is typically how things are going to go, and they are giving all of our control on a pandemic to the WHO. And
who's on first?
Yeah, and not the band, the WHO, the World Health Organization, which is a bunch of criminals. And I mean, they're one step below Fauci. I mean, this is just ridiculous. We are going to be giving away patent rights. We have to give away 20% of all of our medical supplies to the WHO. I mean, not the band, the WHO, to the World Health Organization.
I get that. Have you ever heard Abbott and Costello, who's on first?
I did. I'm ignoring you. So let's
What's
go to
next?
the next one.
Before you get us banned off YouTube.
I don't care. We got Rumble. Okay. This next one is the countries bailed out by China. We're only going to just touch on this one. It'll be in the show notes. But this was put out by Statista. The countries using emergency loans from China by number of years utilized between 2000 and 2021. And this really does kind of show that you have Argentina, you have that looks like Colombia, and then you have Russia, you have several African countries, and China goes in with the BRICS and Rhodes, and they lock you up into energy contracts and everything else. This is frightening. Not only is China printing money to give away to folks, that is the Sopranos on steroids. If you ever think the Sopranos were tough, this is going to be really tough and one to watch. So let's go to the next one here. You got any thoughts on that before I shut it down?
I've got nothing on China. They scare me.
Yeah. Ruts at ruck. Reuse coal plants can cut small modular reactor development costs by 35% in this report. Nearly 1/4 of the current U.S. coal-fired fleet is scheduled to retire by 2029, providing opportunities for site advanced nuclear plants, specifically small modular reactors or SMRs, a Washington, D.C. think tank said in a recent report. Reactors can reuse coal plant systems. And I'll tell you what, this is beautiful. And you just step out the coal furnace, you drop in the nuclear small modular reactor, and you got the transmission lines, you got the water that you can heat into steam, you've got everything else sitting there, you got anything that you need for electric generation. All you need is a power, and poof, there it goes.
Yeah. There's two things. This report says that 80% of evaluated coal plants have the quote basic characteristics. So I'd be interested to know what these basic characteristics are, but quote unquote basic characteristics needed to be powered by an SMR, according to this Department of Energy study. There's also something very interesting, which I'm a big fan of. Reusing coal plant sites could also have labor force advantages with 77% of jobs transferable to nuclear plants with no new workforce licensing required. That's huge because you can then keep those same people employed. It's a little bit more sustainable. Everybody wins.
Absolutely. This is huge and great news.
These coal miners' lungs are already bad. We'll let them get cooked with the radiation so that we can get power still. I'm just kidding.
When they cough and they cough up phlegm, it's glowing. Nice.
Perfect. Yes.
That's a good, they could use it for a fishing lure. They got that going on. Okay. Let's go to the next one. I do want to just give a shout out to the poor folk in Ohio. Ohio, we did those boots on the ground stories with Dr. Chalmers and Matt Coday with the Oilfield Workers Association and RT. They just had another bad one. 3 large barges carrying 1,400 tons of methanol were wedged against a dam and partially submerged. Unbelievable. The only reason I'm bringing this up is our hearts and prayers go out to the folks in Ohio.
Yes.
The water, as Bill Cosby would say, come on in, the water's fine. No, the EPA is saying the water's still drinkable. No, it's not. Your water is safe to drink, the water agency said in a Facebook post. Bull hockey. Anyway, thanks. I'm done ranting. Now it's
Done
off.
ranting.
Yeah, it's off to you.
Well, apparently the water's safe to drink, according to a Facebook post.
No, I'm afraid not.
All right, well, we'll get you out of here on finance quickly, guys. Oil currently trading down 72.90. Nat gas was down to about $1.90 today. Contract rolls over to tomorrow, though, so it'll be trading about $2.17. So again, weakness on both sides. Overall market was actually up about 1.5 percentage point. NASDAQ up about 1.8 percentage points. Dollar index up about 0.25 percentage point. 10-year yields down. 10-year and 2-year yields fairly flat, down about 0.1 of a percentage point. On the crude oil side, I think there's a couple things working both on the supply and the demand side. First, you have to remember we had an unexpected crude draw today. Let's go over to the EIA report. Forecasted 3.1 million barrel build. We saw today at 10 o'clock a negative 7.5 million barrel difference, which indicates a crude draw. The swing in the right favor, I guess. If you're open prices and are trying to hold prices up, this was a good move for you. We also saw some of the biggest draws in terms of refined products from gasoline stocks. That's a good sign that demand is kicking up as we moved into the summer, which will be a great support for prices. Now, just because there's crude oil doesn't mean there's gasoline. And that crunch we've seen doesn't necessarily affect oil prices, but it may affect gas prices if there's enough tightness in this gasoline market. So I think that's something to watch going forward, is the amount of what's actually the throughput between that crude oil moving to the refineries. You can track this. There's some tool, I think it's dashboard.energynewsbeat.com, where you could probably track some of this stuff. So I'd recommend checking it out and leaving your feedback. But, being able to slice and dice and understand that the flow on the gasoline refined product side is going to take some time from that crude oil side. So we may see crude be oversupplied, but that doesn't mean we're going to be oversupplied in gasoline. It can work that way, but I think there's going to be some interesting plays off each other. Moving over to natural gas, $2.17 is what it'll be is what it's trading at, currently in terms of that new front month contract. We settled just under $2, which is about the lowest we've seen in a little over 15 years, I think. I was reading some number out there. I mean, I haven't seen $2 nat gas in a while, guys. And so unfortunately, we're there. There's a couple things. Again, I love looking at nat gas intel. First thing is we're expecting somewhere between a 50 and an 80 BCF draw. As you're listening to this, you'll probably already have heard the crude oil, the natural gas storage draws. So somewhere in, like I said, that 48 to 60 BCF range. Last week, or last year, we had about a 15 million barrel build, or 15 million billion cubic feet build. So seeing that draw is actually going to be a both bullish thing and hopefully hold prices up. But it'll be interesting to see how that number drops. I think the only other interesting thing, Stu, to point out is we did have some M&A action north of the border. Oh, Canada. Crescent Point Energy Corporation has entered into a definite agreement with Sparta Delta Corporation to acquire its oil and liquids-rich Montney assets in Alberta for $1.7 billion. Give you guys an idea, as I mentioned in the open, the Montney is kind of the premier play up there. And one of the key highlights, Stu, acquisition adds 600 Montney locations in Alberta, or over 20 years of premium drilling inventory. I'm going to go out on a limb and say they don't have 20 years of premium drilling inventory, but what do I know?
I don't know.
To give you an idea, they're paying for this in cash. So that's $1.7 billion in cash money. Hopefully they're not depositing that at Silicon Valley Bank.
Ruh-roh.
Ruh-roh. So you got anything else, Stu?
Nah, that's a good show.
Well, we'll let you guys get out of here. Start your day. We appreciate you for checking us out. World's Greatest Energy Podcast. For Stuart Turley, I'm Michael Tanner. We'll see you on Monday, folks. Enjoy the weekly wrap tomorrow.